Well, a very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Scotland Week on Viking.TV. Wherever in the world you are, I hope you're all keeping safe and well. And it's good to be invited back in Scotland Week to talk about a great itinerary called British Isles Explorer. So my name's Neil. I'm based in Viking's London office, where I've worked for the past 12 years. Not a London accent, it's an Edinburgh accent. And I've when did I move away? It was over 20 years ago now, but still retained the accent. So really over the next 20 minutes or so, I want to give you a bit of a brief overview of the British Isles Explorer, which touches on Scotland as well as other parts of the UK and Ireland. And it's a really great itinerary to give you an insight into this part of the world. And there's lots of extensions that you can do around it as well to make the most of your time over here. Now, there will be a questions and answer session at the end, so please keep any questions that you've got coming throughout the presentation, and I'll certainly do my best to answer them as best that I can. And if we can't, then there's loads of people behind the scenes that are well equipped to get your questions answered and get back to you on that. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of tea or a whiskey or whatever you like, and hopefully you'll enjoy this presentation on British Isles Explorer. Thanks.
Welcome to the British Isles Explorer. This is the ultimate journey to get the best out of Scotland, England, Northern Ireland, Ireland, Wales, and of course, a touch of Norway. This is a 15-day journey operating from Bergen, Norway to London, England, or you can of course travel in the reverse direction. There's no real difference as to which way you travel. You visit the same destinations along the way, so it really is a personal preference. A total of 12 guided tours are included, and we have a vast array of optional shore excursions, so you can customise your experience in each of the places that you visit. And to see the delights of the UK and Ireland, you will of course be sailing on one of our sleek ocean ships. And if you've travelled on our ocean ships before, you'll know just how beautiful these ships are. With only 930 guests, all veranda staterooms, lots of indoor and outdoor space, and more inclusions than many other cruise lines, this is most definitely the way to travel. So when's the best time to travel on the British Isles Explorer? Well, we offer these voyages in the springtime, so March and April, and then again in the summer months from June through to September, in order to take advantage of the most favourable weather. In spring, temperatures range from 5 or 6 degrees to 10 to 15 degrees centigrade, so the mid-40s to the mid-50s Fahrenheit. And the highest temperatures are experienced in the summer, but these rarely rise above 30 degrees centigrade, so around 86 degrees Fahrenheit. And during the summer months, you'll experience up to 15 hours of sunlight per day. So the further north that you travel, the longer the days. Now, July and August is peak season, so it can be exceptionally busy. So if you are looking for something a bit quieter, you might opt to travel in maybe March or April. Now, no matter when you travel, pack for all seasons, because on some days you'll have rain, some days you'll have bright sunshine, sometimes it can be a little bit windy in areas, so pack in layers and also take a light raincoat just in case. Also, if you'd like to explore more, we offer pre and post extensions in Bergen, Oslo, Reykjavik and London, all of which we'll talk about after I've given you an overview of this fantastic itinerary. First of all, let's talk about the Viking Way and what it means on this Viking Ocean voyage. Onshore experiences will get closer to the culture and daily life of each destination that we visit. An included excursion is available in all ports, plus the Viking Way of exploration, allowing you to immerse yourself in those destinations with behind-the-scenes insights. The Viking Way of exploring is really broken down into 3 groups. We have local life, and these are experiences providing fascinating insights that reveal the rhythms of daily living, such as experiencing farm life in Norway or Ireland. We have working world, and on these excursions, you'll get a glimpse of the world at work, including industries and arts and crafts. You'll see and understand the local way of life. With such diverse options as learning how iconic Dala of Norway sweaters are made, you can tour a world-renowned Scottish distillery or meet a sheepdog trainer in northern Wales. And of course, my favourite, privileged access. And Viking has arranged exclusive entry for our guests to discover local cultural treasures. And these are experiences that are not open to the general public, and you'll not find them through any other company. You can experience one of the most romantic, well-preserved castles in the Scottish Highlands. You can join an after-hours privileged access tour visiting the magical Beatles Museum in Liverpool, or an iconic visit to the Tower of London. Now, this itinerary map outlines how you'll travel through the British Isles. We embark in Bergen, Norway's second largest city, and your voyage concludes in London, England's capital city. And on this itinerary, we have just 1 day at sea. The rest of the time, you're in port discovering everything on offer. Now, the British Isles Explorer operates between April and September, and we're currently on sale right through to 2024. And I will say that travelling this year is very busy, with only a few staterooms available. So please check Viking.com or call our call centre for the latest availability. Now let's explore British Isles Explorer port by port. What's also special about this itinerary is how it truly maximises your time in Northern Europe. In only 15 days, you'll have the opportunity to visit so many different countries, and you'll experience the best of the history, culture and cuisine of the fascinating destinations on this itinerary. Here's a short video to give you a taster of what's to come.
Immerse yourself in the treasures of the British Isles on a remarkable 15-day voyage with Viking. With 2 days in charming Bergen, you can explore the historic Bergen waterfront, the home of renowned composer Edvard Grieg, and enjoy its majestic peaks. In Scotland's Shetland Islands, step into the last vestiges of empires past. Learn about the Shetland bus, a heroic effort to save Norwegians during World War II. And of course, meet the island's friendliest residents. In the Scottish Highlands, legendary Loch Ness and impressive Iroquois castle delight the imagination. Edinburgh, with its famous castle and old town, promise more civilised pleasures. The Orkney Islands greet you with verdant landscapes, fascinating architecture, and remnants of civilizations that date to the Viking Age and long before. While the staggering beauty of the Wester Ross presents another side of magical Scotland. In Belfast, you can explore the city's landmarks, or set out for the majesty of Giant's Causeway. Liverpool's waterfront is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and of course, the city is hallowed ground for Beatles fans. The coastal Welsh city of Holyhead will charm you with its natural beauty and historic castles, while Ireland's Dublin is one of Europe's great capitals of culture. Your journey ends in magnificent London, where a 2-day stay gives you ample time for an in-depth exploration of such famous places as Westminster Abbey, Buckingham Palace, and nearby Stonehenge.
It's day 1 and welcome to Bergen, Norway, where your voyage begins, and it's one of my favourite cities. If you've arranged air travel through Viking, we'll transfer you from the airport to your Viking Ocean ship, and the transfer time is only around 25 minutes. And the great thing is you'll have plenty of time to get to experience Bergen as you'll spend the night in port. Now, after boarding your ship and settling into your veranda stateroom, the afternoon and evening are yours to relax or explore the city on your own. With your ship berthed next to Bergen Wharf, which is such a central location and it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, you can easily stroll along its waterfront. And this area has cobbled streets and colourful Hanseatic buildings. And Bergen is a really compact city. It's easily accessible on foot with many shops, bars, restaurants, cafes, and of course lots of history. Surrounded by majestic mountains, fjords and glaciers, you'll quickly understand why Bergen inspired the Viking sagas. And this evening you can experience local life and dine ashore independently, or enjoy dinner on board and go for a walk in this fascinating city afterwards. After a comfortable night's sleep, you wake up and it's our second day in Bergen. Now, after breakfast on board, whether that's in the World Cafe, Mamsen's Norwegian Deli or Breakfast in Bed, which is available without any extra charge, you're ready for the day ahead and you can choose from a variety of excursions on offer. Our included excursion today is Panoramic Bergen, and you'll enjoy a relaxing excursion by luxury motor coach as you tour the main sites such as King Haakon's Hall and the Rosenkrantz Tower, the picturesque wooden buildings at Bergen, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and the bustling fish market, and of course the Nordnes Peninsula with its 19th century white painted wooden houses. We do offer several optional excursions, and one I'd recommend is the hike to Mount Floyn, where you ascend 1,000 feet above Bergen to the very top of Mount Floyn for some magnificent views. And whenever I go to Bergen, I always head to Mount Floyn, as the views give you a really good overview of the area. Now, if you're interested in classical music, I would also recommend the optional tour to the famous Norwegian composer Edvard Grieg's house in Trollhaugen, and that's where he spent 22 years of his life. But it's well worth spending some extra time in Bergen, as there is so much to see and do here.
Bergen, Norway's legendary seaport. A city so rich in colours and textures that even the manhole covers are worth a look. The Bryggen, which means the pier, is iconic. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site and a great place to introduce yourself to Norway. The Hanseatic Museum, also on the pier, is fascinating and provides an unusual window into the world of the 12th century, when German trading companies played a significant role in shaping the growth of Bergen. Just a few steps away is the fish market. Locals call it the Fisketorget, and it's definitely worth a look. It's also a great place to learn the finer points of peeling shrimp, like a Norwegian. And if you're extremely lucky, you may just run into the mayor herself. Bergen was also home to the renowned composer Edvard Grieg, who created some of the greatest music of the 19th century. A visit to Trollhaugen, the museum that was his home, is a touching experience and gives you a better understanding of the man and what inspired him. On the island of Lysøyen is another Norwegian treasure, the former home of violin virtuoso and composer Ole Bull. He designed the villa himself, and it clearly reflects his individual character and his fascination with world cultures. The Bergenhus fortress is home to two of the most imposing structures in Bergen, Håkonshall and the Rosenkrantz Tower. Surprisingly, neither are of Norwegian design. For that, you'll want to explore the quintessentially Norwegian, intricately detailed Farntoft Stave Church. It's a special experience, as there are now just a handful of stave churches left in Norway. Or take the Fløibanen to spectacular views. Bergen sits among 7 mountains, and the name itself came from the Norwegian word berg, which means small mountain. Bergen is a wonderfully diverse city, which might just make your favourites list. Let us share with you the nature, character and people of our beautiful homeland.
Dear Viking guests, it is a pleasure and an honor to wish you all warmly welcome to my wonderful city, Bergen, Norway.
Sailing on, and we're on day 3 and we arrived in Scotland, and welcome to the Shetland Islands. And this is where you can admire the rugged beauty of one of the country's most remote island outposts. After breakfast on board, you can choose from a range of excursions. Our included excursion is the Shetland Panorama and Ponies, and this is where you stop at a coastal castle, you see and learn about Shetland ponies, and you take in picturesque landscapes along the way. Now, this is a great included tour, lasting around 2 hours, and it gives you a real flavour of the island and a unique insight into the workings of these extraordinary animals. We do offer several optional excursions on the Shetland Islands, and 2 that I'd like to highlight are the Shetland Seabirds Experience by boat, and that's where you enjoy unrivalled natural spectacles and memorable photographic opportunities of the Shetland wildlife. and another is the ancient civilizations of the Shetlands. So you drive through Lerwick, capital of the Shetland Islands, to the island's southerly point, passing through rural townships and St Ninian's Isle, exploring prehistoric and Norse settlements and learning about the history and culture of the Shetlands. However, back to the Shetland ponies, and here's a short video to tell you more about them.
The windswept Shetland Islands, where the Atlantic Ocean collides with the North Sea, is home to some unique and fascinating characters.
I was born and bred in the house that I'm still in, and I've stayed in Shetland all my life.
Carol Fuller is a wrangler and breeder whose family has long loved the island's iconic residents.
There have been 3 generations that's had the Shetland ponies. They're part of my life.
While the Shetland pony dates to the Bronze Age, it was primarily breeding with Duale ponies brought by the Vikings that created the sprightly breed we see today.
Oh, their spirits is pretty high. They have high spirits. Everyone has a different personality. They're a big white one. She always stands with her head up, lugs up, and ears up and everything. See me.
Though the hardy Shetland pony has long thrived here, its life has rarely been easy.
When I was young, the ponies wasn't for fun, they were work horses. All the craft work was done on the ponies, they were no tractors. They did the carting in the hay, carting in the corn, ploughing the rigs, everything was done on a pony.
And in 1847, when the British banned children from the coal mines, the tough Shetland pony went to work underground. For years they were in constant demand, since these resilient, sure-footed wonders could move loads of coal up to 3,000 miles a year.
They were usually down 2 weeks and up 2 weeks. The ponies was treated very well, and they said the ponies was treated much better than the men.
In such a spacious, relaxed setting, one could easily assume that raising the highly intelligent, extremely patient Shetland pony would be a piece of cake. I was quickly assured that was not the case.
No. You must be good to them. You have to be good to them. But you have to make sure that they know you're the boss. It's just like a dog.
Much like an artist who hates to part with their paintings, Carol often holds on to her ponies. They stay and become part of the family.
At one point I had 6 generations. If they go from me as a foal, they go to some other body. But if they live past a year old, they're aside me for their life. My oldest mare was 35. She was a good old lady. She was a very good old lady.
One thing's for sure, Shetlands are highly addictive. They even hooked Queen Elizabeth, who rode them throughout her childhood. While these precocious ponies top out at only 42 inches, don't let their diminutive stature fool you. Pound for pound, they're actually the strongest of the horse family, able to pull twice their body weight. And one thing they're certainly not short of is personality.
I always say they're like the weather clock. Whichever way the wind is coming from, you'll always see them standing with their rear ends to the wind.
I hope you too will do as I did and pay a visit to Carol and her ponies in the remarkable Shetland Islands.
It's day 4, it's 8 a.m, and today we call in at Invergordon, on the doorstep of the mountainous, heather-covered Scottish Highlands, and you're truly in the heart of the Highlands in this area. This region is one of Europe's most sparsely populated regions, and you'll have a fascinating glimpse into the days of warring clans. Our included tour takes you on a scenic drive discovering Inverness and the surrounding area. Now, Inverness is the cultural capital of the Scottish Highlands, and Scotland's northernmost city, set on the banks of the Ness River. Scotland is of course famous for whisky, and an optional tour is to the Glenmorangie distillery in Dornoch. And that's where you'll tour a world-renowned distillery and explore the quaint historic town of Dornoch. Now, if you are a lover of whisky and you buy a bottle, why wait until you get back home to enjoy it? If you see a bottle that you like, you can bring it back on board and enjoy it, whether that's in the comfort of your stateroom or in the public areas. Another optional tour is to Cawdor Castle and Culloden Battlefield. And for the best of Highlands history and heritage, you'll experience a romantic, stately Scottish Highland home and see the site of the last battle fought on British soil. It's now day 5, and today I'm slightly biased as it's my hometown Edinburgh, Scotland's capital city, gracefully set among rocky hills and green ribbons of park, and we have many tours for you to choose from. Now, the ship docks in Newhaven, which is around 15 minutes drive from the city centre, and it's a really accessible city to get around on foot. There's no high-rise buildings and history around every corner, and you can explore the Georgian architecture of the new town or historic old town, and the famous Royal Mile, which runs from Edinburgh Castle down to Holyhead Palace. Our included tour is the Edinburgh Highlights Tour, and this is a great overview of the city as you see highlights of Edinburgh and architecture from the 17th and 18th century. The tour lasts around 4 hours and gives you a great insight into the city's history. It also means that you have some free time afterwards to explore independently. We also offer several optional tours. One such tour is to the Royal Yacht Britannia and Ultimate Edinburgh Tour. Now, the elegant Royal Yacht Britannia was once the floating home of the Queen and the royal family, and Britannia hosted state and official occasions during its 43 years of service. Later, you'll visit Edinburgh Castle, and then you'll enjoy a short panoramic tour of the Old Town, including highlights along the Royal Mile and the Canongate. Now, if you'd like to venture further outside Edinburgh, I'd recommend a visit to historic St Andrews. Now, many of you will have heard of St Andrews. It's the home of golf, and it's around a 90-minute drive from Edinburgh. Now, this optional tour will take any golf lovers, and those that aren't, of course, on this tour to this historical coastal town and its famous golf course. Now, this is where in 1754, the Royal and Ancient Golf Club of St Andrews was founded and became an utmost authority on the rules of the game. Now, after exploring at your leisure, you'll enjoy a delicious 2-course lunch at a local restaurant, and later you've got time to browse one of the many golf shops and pick up a special memento of your visit. Now, this university town is well worth a visit. It's set on the coast, there's long sweeping beaches and the ruins of St Andrew's Cathedral, founded in 1160. Now, also from Edinburgh, we offer one of our privileged access optional excursions to Broom Hall, home of the family Bruce. Now, here you'll enjoy an exceptionally rare glimpse into Scottish royal history at the family home of King Robert the Bruce. Now, the Bruce family has been at the heart of Scotland's history since the 12th century, when Robert the Bruce took to the throne and secured Scottish independence from England at the Battle of Bannockburn. Now, a member of the Bruce family will greet you, and following a welcome drink, you'll enjoy a fascinating journey through 1,000 years of Scottish history. Now, we're leaving Edinburgh, but staying in Scotland, and we're heading to the Orkney Islands. And today's day 6, and we're ready to immerse ourselves in the rich history of the Orkneys, ruled by the Vikings from the 9th to the 13th century. I visited the Orkneys in 2019 when I was on the Midnight Sun Cruise, and I was so impressed with the history, the local life, and just how calm and beautiful the Orkneys are. Our included tour will take in the highlights of historic Orkney, and I'll let you see the standing stones of Staine, a 5,000-year-old circle of stones, and explore this ancient monument and visit the well-preserved Stone Age settlement of Skara Brae. One of our optional tours, and whisky comes into it again, is a privileged access tour to Highland Park, the world's most northerly whisky distillery. And this is where you'll learn more about the ingredients and the traditional processes adopted that give Highland Park's award-winning whisky its unique character. As we sail to our next port of call, this is definitely one where you need to be out on deck and have your cameras at the ready. We're staying in Scotland as we head to Ullapool. We're on day 7 and we have a half-day visit to Ullapool, where we sail through the truly stunningly scenic Western Isles, as you explore more of the Highlands on the pristine waters of Loch Broom. Now, today's included tour is actually a walking tour around Liverpool, and you'll be able to explore this small fishing town located in a spectacularly remote area of the Highlands and learn about local folklore and live music performed by a talented Liverpool artist. For garden lovers, an optional excursion will take you to Inverness Gardens, lasting around 5 hours. Here you'll witness an array of colour during a tour of one of the Highlands National Trust sites. You'll see Himalayan rhododendrons, Tasmanian eucalyptus and many Chilean and South African plants. Our optional privileged access tour will take you to Castle Loud. It's the home of the chief of the clan Mackenzie, Earl of Cromarty, whose family have lived here for over 500 years. It's one of the few castles in Scotland still occupied by the original family, and it remains very much a family home today. The Earl of Cromarty will personally conduct your tour. It's time to leave Scotland behind as we head over the water to Northern Ireland, and welcome to Belfast. This is the midway point of our British Isles journey. Now, Belfast is a historic city that has undergone a renaissance of late, bolstering its economy and its culture. Now, our included tour lasts for 3 hours and takes in the main sites of Belfast, including the Grand Opera House, the Albert Memorial Clock, the Queen's University and the Botanic Gardens. And be sure to keep a watch out for Belfast political wall murals, a unique cultural touchstone. One of our optional tours is the Belfast Food Trail. Now, I'm sure by now you'll have tried all the restaurants on board the ship. However, for the foodies amongst us, the Belfast Food Trail is a guest favourite that food lovers will not want to miss. Now, this walking tour centres on cuisine. You'll learn about Northern Ireland's specialities from a food connoisseur and local producers, and you'll enjoy frequent and generous samples of favourite foods and drinks as you make your way through the historic neighbourhoods of Belfast. We're now heading over to England. It's day 9 and we're in Liverpool. Now, the ship generally docks at 8 AM and doesn't depart until 11 PM, so you have lots of time to discover what Liverpool has to offer. Now, Liverpool is the birthplace of the Beatles and a stunning cultural centre of soaring churches and impressive architecture. And we dock right in the centre of the city, which gives easy access to the city attractions. Our included tour today lets you discover some of cosmopolitan Liverpool's most impressive architecture and cultural sites, including Liverpool Philharmonic Hall, the Albert Dock, and you'll stop at Liverpool Cathedral, the largest Anglican cathedral in Britain and the 5th largest in the world. As we're in Liverpool well into the evening, you'll have ample free time to explore or take part in an optional excursion. You can enjoy privileged access on our optional tour at the magical Beatles Museum. You'll meet your Beatles expert who'll lead you through the world's largest privately owned collection of Beatles memorabilia, and later you'll listen to a Beatles tribute group. It's now time to leave Liverpool and we head over the water to Wales. It's day 10 and welcome to Holyhead. Now, Holyhead is a cosy coastal enclave on the northwestern tip of Wales, and the town is contained within one of the few 3-walled Roman forts in Europe, protected on the 4th side by the sea. And our included tour takes you to Beaumaris, and on this walking tour of the coastal town of Beaumaris, you may choose to visit Beaumaris Castle, one of the finest examples of the great medieval castles found in Wales. Although construction was never completed, the castle dominates the town with its concentric defensive walls and the surrounding moat. Now, from Holyhead, there's 2 optional excursions that I'd like to highlight. For railway enthusiasts, our optional Vestiniog Railway is one of the oldest of Wales' narrow-gauge railways. Founded in 1832, it brought slate from the quarries of Blaenau to Portmadog. While on board the train, admire the scenic landscape of tranquil pastures, lush oak forests, and stunning waterfalls of the Snowdonia National Park. The other is a visit to RSPB Conway. Now, RSPB is the Royal Society for the Prevention of Birds. And for the wildlife lovers, it's an idyllic wetland situated along the Conway estuary and overlooked by the Cairndow Mountains. Now, this 120-acre reserve provides a habitat for a wide variety of wildlife, such as lapwings, curlaws, oyster catchers, warblers and egrets. So for wildlife lovers, that is definitely on the to-do list. However, it's time to leave Holyhead as we head into day 11 and the iconic city of Dublin. This charismatic city on the Liffey River, it was originally founded as a Viking settlement, and today it's one of Europe's most significant cultural hubs, with a great atmosphere and lots of shops, restaurants, cafes and bars. Our included City Views of Dublin tour showcases the highlights of the city, passing by Ireland's oldest university, Trinity College, founded in 1592 by Queen Elizabeth I. Now, Trinity's library is home to the world-famous Book of Kells, a hand-illuminated manuscript of the Gospels. One of our optional excursions I'd like to highlight is the Guinness connoisseur experience. Now, you can't go to Dublin and not sample Guinness. You'll learn what goes into making a pint of Ireland's most famous export on this exclusive connoisseur experience. You'll discover how important good technique is to pull in the perfect pint, from the way to hold the glass and the speed at which the stout enters it, to the time it takes for the pint to settle, and the final touch that gives it its creamy head. Then sit back, relax, and savour your pint of the black stuff. It's now day 12, and this is our only sea day, and you can have a well-deserved day of relaxation as we sail the Irish Sea and the Celtic Sea along a stretch of the Atlantic Ocean. You'll enjoy the spectacular scenery as you round the southern shores of Wales and England and enter the English Channel, eventually making your way to the Strait of Dover. Now, there's such familiarity on board our ships, whether it's river, expedition or ocean, it's easy to call them a home away from home. The design, the intricate details, the amazing crew on board that remember your favourite drink on the first day. Just sit back, relax, spend time in the spa, even try the snow grotto, or discover the artwork on board your ship. The curated books in the library from our friends at Haywood Hill. Enjoy a Norwegian waffle from Mamson's using a homemade recipe. There'll be lectures taking place today for you to enjoy, or simply head down to the living room, grab a cappuccino and catch up with your fellow guests. The choice is entirely yours. It's day 13 and we're calling on Dover, England. Its importance as a port dates to the Bronze Age. One of the highlights of our included tour takes you to the medieval city of Canterbury. Now, it was made famous through Geoffrey Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, and today it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Should you choose, you may walk to the magnificent Canterbury Cathedral. One of our optional tours gives you more of an insight into Canterbury Cathedral, and you also visit Leeds Castle, the oldest castle in England. Or you could immerse yourself in natural beauty at Sissinghurst Castle and Garden, an Elizabethan-era mansion with a classic English country garden. We're nearing the end of our voyage and we navigate the Thames and head to historic Greenwich. Now, whatever direction you choose to do this itinerary in, you must get yourself out on deck as you travel along the Thames. It's a special part of the journey as you navigate through the Thames barrier and see some historic sites on either side of the river. We arrive in the Royal Borough of Greenwich on day 14, part of which, Maritime Greenwich, is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And this is a really lovely area with lots of independent shops and cafes, and it's also an easy point to explore London independently from. There's local water taxis that can take you to the city frequently in around 30 minutes or so. Our included tour today is Greenwich's maritime and royal history, and it's a walking tour where you'll see the famous Cutty Sark ship of 1869, the National Maritime Museum, and the iconic Old Royal Navy College. As I mentioned, London is just a short drive or water taxi away, so you can take in the regal city in all its splendour. You can see the Tower of London, Parliament and Big Ben, Westminster Abbey, Buckingham Palace and St Paul's Cathedral. We have a privileged access optional excursion today where you can experience the ceremony of the keys at the Tower of London. You'll enjoy a very special after-hours visit of the Tower of London and experience a unique centuries-old tradition. The Tower of London has been the setting for many great events during its 1,000-year history, as the Royal Palace, Fortress, Prison, Place of Execution and Jewel House. Now, following your tour, you'll witness the age-old tradition of the ceremony of the keys. Now, this has been enacted every night without fail for almost 700 years by the chief yeoman warder of the tower. This is your chance to witness a piece of royal history that still exists today. Your voyage concludes here in London. After breakfast on board, many of you will disembark and proceed to the airport for your return flight home, or travel onwards independently. Or you may wish to linger longer if you've opted to continue your voyage with one of our extension packages. As I mentioned earlier, you can extend your voyage with our pre and our post packages, and there's a few I'd like to tell you about now. Starting off in the UK, you could spend an extra 5 nights in the UK on Churchill's Britain, and that's where you'll discover the life and times of Sir Winston Churchill, including a tour of his family home at Chartwell. Or if you wanted to stay independently in London for an extra 2 nights, we can arrange that for you, and then you can go off and do your own thing in this vibrant capital city. We also offer pre-extension packages in Bergen and Oslo, Norway, or Reykjavik, Iceland, and you can choose between 2 nights in Bergen, where you can discover more about this Hanseatic city, or experience Oslo, Norway's capital, and Bergen on this 4-night Best of Norway extension with a spectacular train journey linking them both. Or our 2-night scenic Oslo and train journey lets you explore the architecture, museums and lifestyle of this great city. Or add another country to the journey and experience Iceland and the Golden Circle on this 3-night extension. Before I take your questions, I'd like to tell you about 2 new itineraries that include the British Isles. The first is Iceland, British Isles and Iberia, and this is a 15-day journey from Reykjavik, Iceland to Barcelona, Spain, with stops in such places as Dublin, Lisbon and Granada, and it will allow you to really immerse yourself in their distinctive cultures. Here's a map of your voyage, and one thing that is particularly unique about this itinerary is the change in landscapes. So you'll marvel as the scenery changes, including the black volcanic terrain of Iceland, the temperate rolling green hills of Ireland, as well as the sunny and inviting warm waters of the Mediterranean Sea along Spain's southern coast. The other itinerary is Scandinavia and the British Isles, and this is a 29-day journey from Stockholm to London. In about a month, you'll maximise your time in Scandinavia and Northern Europe by experience in no less than 13 countries. And some of the highlights of this itinerary include sailing the pristine waters of Scandinavia and the seas of the Baltic and British Isles. You'll also witness stunning vistas of the Norwegian fjords and explore towns and capitals of Northern Europe, including Berlin, Copenhagen and Tallinn. Now, if you have any questions or would like any more information on any voyage around the globe, please contact your Viking representative or visit Viking.com.
Hi again. I hope you enjoyed that short presentation. As I mentioned, it was really just to give you a bit of an overview of the British Isles Explorer. One thing I just wanted to point out on the presentation is when I talk about Greenwich and the ship either leaving from or coming back to Greenwich, there is actually 2 or 3 dates that we operate where the ship departs from or returns to Tilbury. And Tilbury is further out of London. It's probably a good 45 minutes drive to get into Tilbury, and that's it'll be detailed on your confirmation exactly where you're flying and you're sailing back into. But just to point that out, that 2 or 3 stops, 2 or 3 cruises do come into Tilbury and the rest go into Greenwich, but both are very accessible for getting into London compared to other cruise lines that dock in places, for example, like Southampton, which is much further away. So I just wanted to point that out to you. But obviously we're here to answer as many questions as we can. We've got Scott in the background. Scott isn't Scottish, but his name's Scott. So he's a token Scott. And he'll be asking the questions, and let's hope that I can answer them. So keep them coming.
Lovely.
Scott.
Thank you, Neil. So our first question is from Mike, who is in the United States. And he asks, when visiting Sittinghurst Castle and Gardens, is there a tour included in the castle?
Thanks. Hi, Mike. Yeah, thanks for the question. The straight answer is yes, there is. So that will be all included as part of the excursion, so you can get the best out of Sissinghurst. So absolutely, and that's the great thing about the excursions, especially that I suppose the included excursions give you a brilliant overview of the destination that you visit, and then the optional excursions definitely give you much more of an insight into the place that you're visiting. So you will get your tour included in that. So thanks for the question.
Perfect. Thanks for the answer, Neil. And question here from Patricia in the US. She asks, how many stops along the way on this itinerary, and how long does the ship stay at each stop for?
Thanks, Tricia. Thanks for joining Viking.TV. And so we've got 12 stops along the way, and it's a very destination-intensive cruise. There's actually only one sea day in the whole itinerary, so it really is great for getting the best out of the British Isles. Generally, you'll dock at around 8 a.m. in the morning, and you'll leave at approximately 6 p.m. in the evening. So it gives you ample time to enjoy the ship in the evening. Some exceptions to that are, for example, Liverpool, where you'll actually leave much later at night, around 11 p.m. at night. So you've got the full day and into the evening that you can go off and explore there. On the other hand, you've got somewhere like Ullapool, where you do some fantastic scenic cruising coming into Ullapool. You dock around midday and then you leave late afternoon. So it's a slightly shorter time there. But, 99.9% of this itinerary, you've really got a good 10 to 12 hours in port. So it's ample time to go off and explore.
Perfect. And then we've got a question from Enrico, who is in the US, and he simply asks, what is the best time to visit the UK?
Thanks, Enrico. Let's with the end of January, and it's a bit dark outside, and temperatures of around sort of 4 or 5 degrees. So I definitely recommend sort of obviously when we operate spring into summer. There's definitely more crowds in the summer. So obviously you'll generally get much lighter and longer days travelling, say June through to August, and temperatures that can get really high in London. And I was up to last summer it was in the sort of mid-70s temperature upwards, and actually up in Scotland we had some beautiful days up there as well. So the perception of Scotland is it might be a bit rainy and a bit cold, but it can be just as good as any other part of the British Isles in the height of the summer. Spring temperatures are lower, but there's not as many crowds. I suppose it's like a land for all seasons and all times of the year, really. I like the summer months because it's longer days. You can go out and just have a t-shirt on or a lightweight jacket. But when you travel around the cities and venture into the cities, there is going to be more people going around. So if you're one to avoid the crowds and like a sort of quieter pace of life, then maybe consider one of the spring departures. But definitely bring a jumper and a waterproof with you, because the weather can be unpredictable, as it can be in the summer. It's a bit of a mixed bag. I don't know if that really answered your question, actually, because I went round in circles there. But for me, it's the summertime because I like the warmth and I like the long days. But it's to everybody's preference, really.
I totally agree. And then the next question is from Laurie, who is in the United States. She asks, how often does Viking take this cruise itinerary?
Thanks, Laurie. So we've got about 9 or 10 departures actually operating sort of March, April, and then again from June through to early August. So there's plenty of opportunity to look at this itinerary. Availability, I will say, for this year, 2022, is pretty booked up. So we're on sale right through to 2024. But you have got at least 9 or 10 departure days that you can pick and choose from. So, and also, as I mentioned earlier, there's no real difference in the direction that you operate this itinerary. Some people like to start in the UK and then it's travelling north, so it's heading into the much lighter and longer days. or in the reverse direction, you visit exactly the same ports of call. And when we operate, it's generally, 1 week it's London, Bergen. The following week you'll just be coming back in the opposite direction. And we use various ships on this itineraries as well. They're all identical. If you've travelled with us before, you can't really tell them apart. But it's various ships that operate that route. And what you tend to find is that we'll do the British Isles Explorer, which will end up in Bergen, and then that ship will then back on to do Viking Homelands, for example, where you'll go Bergen round to Stockholm, or it may do the Midnight Sun cruise from Bergen back down to London, and then start the British Isles cruise. So there's so many variations that you can add on to the British Isles Explorer, but that's generally how the cruises operate. So to answer your original question, around 9 or 10 departures a year we operate.
Lovely, thank you, Neil. And then the next question is from Melinda, who is in the US. And she asks, what's your personal opinion on the best month to take this cruise?
Thanks, Melinda. Sort of just really what I mentioned earlier. I mean, I love the summer months. So for me, it would be sort of, June, July into early August. There's so much going on in all the cities that you visit in the summer. There's festivals, there's fairs, and you can just sort of stay out longer. But as I said, on the other hand, travel end of March into April, the scenery is completely different. If you go into spring, you've got all the flowers coming out, they're coming in bloom, everything's sort of fresh and opening up, and as I said, the crowds are slightly less, so that's a good option as well. It's really down to your preference, but whatever fits in with your dates and work-wise or whatever you're up to. I suppose that's the good thing about operating, really from March through to July. We sort of try and cover all seasons and all personal preferences, really.
Perfect. And then we've got Carl, who is from the United States, and he says he's interested in railways, but does Viking offer any railway shore excursions for this itinerary?
We've got like I mentioned in the presentation, we've got the Vestiniog railway. If you do the Welsh itinerary, one that I would recommend actually is if you're thinking of doing the extension, is taking the rail journey that operates between Bergen and Oslo, which is truly spectacular. I mean, it takes around sort of 6 hours plus, but the scenery is just amazing. And actually, if you do it sort of maybe end of sort of March into April time, you've still not got the snow on the mountains, and it's really fresh. And you've got snow 1 minute, and then you've got the sunshine the next, and you've got the flowers creeping through. So that's a really nice itinerary, and you see all these little sort of huts and the way that the sort of Norwegian live within the sort of landscape of Norway, and that's a brilliant itinerary. I've done that numerous times, and really enjoyed it. So if you're thinking of doing the extension, I would certainly do Oslo Bergen with the train journey in the middle. If you're just looking at doing a rail journey, then we've got obviously the Vestiniog in Wales. And actually, independently, if you're in any of these cities, and want to experience something independently, railway related, then our guest services team on board can certainly help you out with recommendations to where to travel and where to go to. So, but on this itinerary, there's really a couple where railway is included as part of it.
Perfect. And the next question is from Robert, who is also in the US. And he says he's booked to come on this cruise later this year and is interested in visiting the original Madame Tussauds Museum in London. He asks, will he have enough time to visit? And he's heard that it takes around 2 to 3 hours to get around Madame Tussauds.
Hi, Rob. Yes, we will do. I've not been to Madame Tussauds for 30 years, so I think it's about time that I actually paid the return visit. But getting to Madame Tussauds is really easy. There's a brilliant underground network. There's a good bus network. I mean, from Greenwich, from central, I mean, it is central London, Madame Tussauds. From where the ship docks in Greenwich, I mean, it would probably take you, you know, maybe 45 minutes to an hour to get there. Maybe a couple of changes on the underground along the way, but it is, you know, very, very central within London. And because you dock overnight, you will have time to do it. And that's the great thing. You can maybe do the shore excursion, the included excursion in the morning, and then go off independently in the afternoon and visit Madame Tussauds. So you will have time to do that. Just sort of plan accordingly and, you know, map your calendar out. So you've got it planned, and the guest services team on board or the local tourist boards can actually help with the best way of you know, getting to your destination. But it is definitely a possibility, no problem at all.
Perfect. And the next question is from Toby, who is also in the United States. And he asks, will I be able to see the White Cliffs of Dover when on board the ship?
Hi, Toby. Yes, you will. As you come into Dover, there are the White Cliffs, and you can be out on deck singing that famous song as you come in. So absolutely, you will see the White Cliffs of Dover.
Perfect. And then Brenna from the United States asks, how close is Greenwich to the Tower of London? Would I be able to visit in my free time?
Hi, Brenna. Yeah, yes, you would do. So, yeah, from Greenwich, I think it's, I mean, as the crow flies, you're maybe sort of around 4 miles or so, but you can absolutely visit that. And actually, if you come into Greenwich, where the ship docks, and it's just a tender, actually, it's a very, very short tender. So it's only about, you know, 5 minutes on the tender boat from where the ship drops in Greenwich to get to the pier. And when you're at the pier, you can actually then take the Thames Clipper, which is the water taxi, right into Westminster, into central London. So you more or less go sort of via Tower Bridge, and there's stopping points along the way, so it's very, very accessible. And actually, even if you're on one of the departures that goes into Tilbury and you come into central London, again, it's easy to get into Tower Bridge. Yeah, there's great. I mean, Tower Bridge is amazing. You know, when I'm coming into work in the morning, you know, I'll walk across the what was the Millennium Bridge. You know, it's still called the Millennium Bridge because it was built for the Millennium. And you cross the Thames over to the South Bank, and you take it for granted how spectacular the London skyline is because you see it every day. But I mean, you know, my walk to work in the morning, you see Tower Bridge in the background, and if you've got the sunrise coming up, it's absolutely spectacular. But yeah, it's phenomenal. You know, it's just history around every corner. But to answer your question, it's absolutely accessible to visit when you're docked in London.
Yeah, I totally agree. Living in London, you definitely do take advantage of it being right next to you. Yeah. Our next question comes from Taylor, who is in the United States. He says he's booked on this cruise for 2023, but what is the best place to eat English food whilst on board the ship?
Hi, Taylor. So the great thing about when you're travelling on any of our itineraries, so if you're on the British Isles, for example, they generally do, you know, either a menu of the country that you're in the main restaurant is a course that you can order. In the chef's table, on previous cruises, we've actually had a British menu. It was a Karen Burns Booth menu, actually, British menu that she put together for us, which was really well received, actually. And that gave you a little insight into Yorkshire pudding, and there was sort of various, you know, there was a fish and chip course in there as well. So sometimes within the chef's table, we map whatever destination that you're in to the actual menu. And up in the World Cafe, there's generally some sort of local specialities. So there's generally 2 or 3 different options where you can sample the local food. But remember, you know, when you're out and about during the day, you know, there's the ample choice to try different things. I mean, if you're in Scotland, obviously you've got to try haggis. I mean, 25th of January last night was Burns night, where haggis is, traditionally served. And if you've never tried it, I would definitely give it a go. I absolutely love haggis, and there's a vegetarian haggis option now as well that you can try. So that's certainly my recommendation, and you can email in next time after you came back and tell me how you enjoyed it.
Perfect, thank you, Neil. And then the next question is from Rebecca, who is in the United States. She asks, which side of the ship would you recommend booking for this cruise?
Hi, Rebecca. Something, it makes no real difference. Whether you're port side or starboard side, there's something to see, on either side, as you're coming into port. And I always say, whether you're on one of our river ships or one of our ocean ships, it makes no difference at all, because your stateroom is to sleep in. And yeah, it's great to wake up in the morning and go out on your veranda and see what's happening, but you want to be out on the explorer's deck, or you want to be up on main deck where you can see what's happening on either side of the ship, and that's where you'll want to spend most of your time. So don't get too sort of hung up on what side of the ship that you go on, because there's so many public areas inside and outside to actually be out to see what's happening. And that's true of river. Whenever I'm sailing on river, and if you're in certainly one of the standard cabins, all you want to do is be up in the main lounge area or out on deck to see what's happening. The other great thing about the ocean ships is that you've got the webcam, so regardless of where you are, you can see exactly where the ship is headed and what's happening in front of you. So there's so many options, but don't worry too much about what side of the ship that you're on. Get out on deck and enjoy it. Get up early and make the most of coming into port, and then you can see what's happening on both sides.
Perfect. And the next question is from Frank, who is in the United States. He asks, has Viking considered a stop somewhere in Cornwall before?
Thanks for that. We do. So, right, it's not a tricky one. I'm just trying to remember when we in 2022, so last summer 2021, when we started our restart cruises, we actually had a cruise that went into Cornwall. We do actually have, you've caught me on the hop here, Scott, actually, but we actually do have a couple of cruises that go into Falmouth in Cornwall, and you have the full day in Falmouth. And there's only a couple of itineraries in the year that visit Falmouth, and it's generally the start of the season in sort of April time and also in October. So there's none that will sort of hug the coastline, but certainly it gives you a day in Falmouth. I can get back to you with the name of the cruise. It's generally our sort of repositioning cruises, generally maybe where we're traveling from Scandinavia down to the Med or so. And off the top of my head, I've not got them in front of me or in my memory bank for 2022 or 2023, but the cruise that we do have a couple of dates that go into Falmouth, and then the rest of the time you're in other places. So it gives you a taste of Cornwall, not a comprehensive taste, but it will give you a taste of it that they'll go into Falmouth. Maybe Scott can find that out for me, what cruise it is, because for the life of me, I can't remember the name of it.
I believe off the top of my head, it is Trade Routes of the Middle Ages. Yeah. Or Iberian Explorer, one or the other. Yeah. We'll have a look into it and come back to it.
Thanks. It's not like a 3 or a 4 port tour of Cornwall. It's just the one port in Falmouth that you'll go into.
Oh, it is the Iberian Explorer.
Right. Excellent.
But yeah, absolutely, you're correct there, Neil. It is a repositioning cruise from the Mediterranean up to London, and then I'm sure we go on to the Baltic afterwards.
Yeah, I knew there's always one question that will catch me out, so thanks for that.
That's all right. And then the next question is from Nicholas, who is in the US, and he asks, what facilities, or what are the facilities of the spa on board?
Hi, Nicholas. the spa. I could quite happily spend all day in the spa. So you have well, first of all, you go into the changing rooms. Anybody that's travelled with us before will be able to wax lyrical about this more than me, but you've got the changing rooms and you've got the sauna in there. Then you've got the cold water plunge pool. You then go through to the main spa area where you've got the hydrotherapy pool. You have then got the steam room. You've got the snow grotto in there. And you've also got the cold water ice bucket challenge, more or less. And, you know, it's all part of this Nordic ritual, Nordic experience, going from the hot to the cold to the hot to the cold. And, you know, it's meant to rejuvenate the skin, and you come out of the spa looking 20 years younger. So there's a lot of facilities in there. You know, you've got the heated beds that you're lying on, which is really good for the back. Yeah, and we've also got the fitness centre next door to the spa. And something I really need to point out is there's absolutely no charge to use any of these facilities. You know, you've got some cruise lines that will charge a fee to go into the spa, but there's absolutely no charge to use our spa facilities. And it's found on deck 2. And the crew on board, and certainly in the spa, they're more than happy to take you into the spa and explain the process about how everything works. I would actually recommend we do a Nordic spa experience, and it happens after hours. You know, the spa shuts generally about 6:30, 7 o'clock at night, and you go in with a small group, and you're taken with a therapist round the spa, telling you exactly how obviously everything works, but you're actually learning the story of why everything in the spa is in the spa, and how it all relates back to sort of Nordic essence of everything that we do. So I'll not give too many secrets away about that experience, but you come out completely, you know, sort of relaxed from it and rejuvenated. So that's the Nordic spa experience, which is available on board.
Perfect. And then the next question we've got here is from Elle, and it comes from the Facebook Live. And they ask, are there any puffin colonies in Scotland and the surrounding islands?
Yes, there are. They're actually, some of them are so remote that they're actually quite difficult to get to. So I'd probably recommend that you maybe stay on independently, and then you can sort of pre-plan in advance to try and visit some of these. However, in the Shetland Islands, if I'm not mistaken, there is an excursion that you can take, which there's a chance to see puffins from the Shetland Islands on one of the optional excursions that we do. I think it's the Seabird experience, where you can have the opportunity to try and see puffins. It's never guaranteed, but that is one option. Or you can extend your stay from London. You know, you can then maybe take the train up to Edinburgh, or fly up to Edinburgh and travel around independently. And there's definitely a few options on quite remote islands, generally in the north of Scotland, that you can try and get to see the puffins.
Perfect. And then the next question is from Frank, who is in the US, and he asks, what would you recommend doing in Edinburgh independently?
That's an easy one, hopefully. I've actually just had a message come through from one of our guests saying, why am I not mentioning Glasgow? Unfortunately, Duncan, the British Isles Explorer, doesn't go to Glasgow, so you'll have to enjoy Edinburgh on this one. In Edinburgh, independently, so the ship docks in a place called Newhaven, which is in the north of Edinburgh, and it's around 15 minutes, 20 minutes maximum to the city centre. Now, for me, I would actually, you know, you've got the castle, you've got the Royal Mile, you can walk down to Holyhead Palace, you can see all the history. I love the new town, and you know, since I left Edinburgh, you know, these years ago, every time I go back, I treat it as a tourist. So I start off in, the new town, looking at all the Georgian architecture. There's an area called Dean Village, which is, Edinburgh's a really compact city. It's really, really easy to wander around. So there's no great distances in the place that I'm telling you around. but you've got the sort of Georgian New Town, which is well worth a visit. You then got an area called Stockbridge, and that's actually, it's just like a small village suburb of Edinburgh. 50 minutes walk from the sort of main New Town, and you've got a lot of independent little shops and restaurants and cafes and art galleries and everything there. And then you've got, as I said, Dean Village, which is really, really picturesque. I'd spend my time around there and try and maybe sort of discover the areas that you maybe wouldn't find on the tourist trail. Another great one is actually just to head down towards Holyhead Palace, and you've got great parks down there. You could take a walk up Arthur's Seat, which would take you, a good few hours. But if you're into walking, you could head up Arthur's Seat, and you'll get some stunning views of over the city. There's so much to do, but what I'd probably recommend is you're in Edinburgh 8 in the morning till around 6 at night. So you can maybe do the included tour and get dropped off in the city centre, and then go off independently, and then sort of make your own way back to the ship. I mean, from the city centre to where the ship docks, it maybe cost you $15 in a taxi, in a cab, so maybe sort of £10 or so to get you down there. But for me, it would be discovering more of the New Town, and the cobbled streets and these really handsome Georgian buildings and architecture.
Perfect. And the next question is from Lois in the United States. She asks, is this a good trip for a healthy 81-year-old lady travelling alone?
Absolutely, Lois. You need to book and you need to travel on this trip. Friendly locals. I'm friendly, Scott's friendly, James behind the scenes is friendly. You've got the crew looking after you. They'll watch out for you and tell you the right sort of places to go. You can be handheld if you want, but if you want to go up independently, it's absolutely fine. And the great thing is, in a lot of these ports, we dock, fairly near the city centres, so everything's easily accessible. But you will absolutely fine. On board, you'll be looked after from the minute you get on board to the minute you get off. And again, in all these cities that you're travelling to, no problems whatsoever. You'll have a great time. And up in Norway, Bergen's a great city. And if you're travelling your own or travelling in a group, you always get chatting to people. You always generally, everybody that travels on our cruises, they've generally got the same interest. You really want to discover about the place that you're visiting. So, you generally get chatting to people, and you'll maybe go, off on some of the excursions with the people that you meet. So absolutely get yourself booked. You'll have a great time.
I absolutely agree. And the next question is from Eileen, and she's also from the US. And she asks, should we start booking our tours now? We're booked on a trip for summer this year.
Yes, Eileen. So generally the excursions book up a certain time in advance, and you'll generally get a notification about when the excursions are open for you to book. So as soon as that is available, I would certainly get in and book and get the included tours for the right times that you want to go, whether that might be in the morning or the afternoon, and then that would give you time to book any optionals. So look out for an email or head on to My Viking Journey to see if they're available to open and to book as yet. But as soon as they are open, I would definitely get you get booking them, and then you'll get the choice that you want at the time that you want.
Perfect. I totally agree. Get booking as soon as possible. The next question is from Irene in the US. She's got a few questions incorporated. The first one is, how many passengers does the ship accommodate? And approximately how many people are on each tour of the shore excursions?
Yeah. Irene, so our ocean ships, they take 930 guests, and generally, I mean, depending how the sailing is, you could have up to 930 guests on board, subject to any sort of local conditions. The one thing I will say is on board the ship, if you've not travelled on an ocean ship with us before, you've never experienced so much space. You wonder where everybody is on board the ship, because you're either in your stateroom, sitting on your veranda, you'll be in the Explorer's Lounge, you'll be up on sort of deck 7 or deck 8 outside, you'll be in the living room chatting to sort of newfound friends. So there's so much space. But Scott, you'll probably agree. It's uncanny. You'd never feel like there is a full ship.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's such a well-designed ship and great use of space. But the ships take 930, and on sailings you may find that there are 930 on board. When you go on the tours, we generally split into smaller groups. So coaches can take sort of maybe 24 passengers upwards or so. You can maybe, between maybe sort of 24 and 35 or so, you might find if you're doing one of the included tours. And if you're doing one of the optional tours, you may find that it's a smaller group depending on the demand for going on that. Now, if you've not travelled with us before, Irene, you'll find that we give you a Quiet Vox headset, which is basically a headset that you put in, put the technology around your neck, and you can listen to everything that the guide's saying in the ear, which means that you can just go at your own pace and, your distance from everybody else, and you can really listen to what's going on without actually huddling in and listening to what the guide's saying. So, we've got the Quiet Vox headsets for that when you're out and about. But, as I said, generally, I don't know, maybe 25 upwards on an included tour, and even then we generally split you into maybe smaller groups with a guide as you're going around town. So it really just depends on what excursion that you're doing and what city that you're in. But from a space point of view on board the ship, they're so well designed. You'll as I said, you'll wonder where everybody is.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the next question is from Wesley in the United States. And he asks, do you have a tour to Loch Ness? If so, will I see the Loch Ness Monster?
Hi, Wesley. We, the included tour will certainly take you around that area of sort of like Loch Ness and Inverness and whatever. I don't know if you'll see the monster. If you head into one of the gift shops, I can guarantee you'll be able to buy a monster, a cuddly monster that you can take back home. Whether you'll see the real thing, who knows? Expect the unexpected.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And then our next question comes from Pamela. She's from the US as well, and she asks, for older folks, are all tours required, or can a passenger opt out and stay on the ship?
Hi, Pamela. You can, it's your journey, your voyage, your cruise, you can do exactly what you want. So if you'd rather not go on one of the excursions and want to stay on board the ship, then that's absolutely fine. And you'll probably have the ship to more or less yourself. You can just relax on board. The great thing that we do, being such a small ship, we can get into destinations that a lot of the bigger ships can't get into. We're only 930 guests. I mean, there's cruise ships out there. There's a lot of, taking nearly 5,000, people on board. For me, 930 is just the right size. But generally, we operate shuttle buses to take you into the town or the local village. So if you wanted to go off independently, maybe for an hour or so and have a wander about and then come back to the ship, then that's certainly an option as well.
Lovely. And our next question is from Leonard, and he's also from the US. He just simply asks what currency is used on board the ship.
Thanks, Leonard. So everything on board the ship is priced in US dollars, and you'll just pay, leave your credit card details at the beginning, and it'll be debited at the end for whatever you've spent. And the great thing is that on board, you can, every minute of the day, if you want, you can see exactly what your tally is so far, so you can see what you've spent daily. So you don't really need any cash on board. It's all priced in US dollars, and you leave a credit card and pay for all purchases at the end. If you're in Norway, you've got the Norwegian krona. Throughout the UK, you've got the pound. In Ireland, you've got the euro. And it's always good maybe just to take small denominations, just a small amount of local currency, just in case you want to go into a shop or you want to get a coffee or something like that. But everywhere will take credit cards, so there's absolutely no problem at all there.
Perfect. And the next question is from Susan, who is in the United States, and she asks, are there any areas on this itinerary known for wine?
Hi, Susan. Yes, there is. There is an excursion from Dover, which will take you to Chapel Down Winery. It is Chapel Down Winery. Yeah. It's about a 7-hour extension, 7-hour excursion, from Dover. That'll take you to the Chapel Down Winery. So absolutely, yeah, we can do that on board. And if you're a lover of wine and you're on board, head to the chef's table. And the chef's table is generally a 5-course tasting menu with a different wine pairing on each course. So if you're a wine connoisseur, then that's definitely the place to go. But you can go to Chapel Down Winery. And I have to sort of point this out as well, and I know I mentioned it in the presentation, that we have a no corkage fee on board our ships, whether that's river or ocean. How many cruise lines would allow you to go to Chapel Down Winery, buy a couple of bottles and bring them back on board and drink them either in your stateroom or in the public areas or at your dinner table? There's absolutely no corkage fee. You're more than welcome to do that. There's nothing worse than enjoying a glass of wine that you've got when you're on one of the excursions and then waiting until you get home, bring it back on board and enjoy it. And that's one of the unique sort of features of traveling with us. We're not going to confiscate any of your purchases, but definitely head down to Chapel Down Winery from Dover. It's a good option.
Definitely. And then Leroy, who is from the US as well, he asks, do you get to go to the Oslo Viking Ship Museum during the Oslo pre-extension?
Hi, Leroy. Simple answer, yes, you do. And you'll have a great time.
Nothing better than a simple answer. And next question is from Peter, who is in the US as well. And he says, because this cruise traverses the North Sea, is it possible to hit some rough seas?
The simple answer is yes, you can. It's like anywhere in the world, there could be rough seas, but the ship is so well designed that you'll barely feel it. And obviously we travel in between the end of March, April into the summer months when generally the seas are calmer. So I really wouldn't worry too much about the North Sea. Anytime that I've either done parts of this voyage or the Midnight Sun cruise up the coastline of the UK up to Norway, there's been no major issues at all. But just like anywhere, you may do, you may not, but for the time of year that we travel, I think you should be pretty well okay.
Yep, I agree. And then the next question is from Jeff, who is in the United States. He asks, is there any advantage of sightseeing if your tour departs from London instead of Bergen?
In terms of timing, is that, Scott?
It is, let's have a look while it reloads. Essentially, is there an advantage of going one way or the other on this cruise?
Yeah. Right, okay, yeah. Right, so if you start off in Bergen, so if you're travelling over from the States, you'll arrive in the morning, you'll maybe arrive 8 or 9 in the morning. 25-minute transfer to get you to the ship. settled into your stateroom, then you'll have the whole day up until around 2 o'clock. Sorry, 6 p.m. is the departure from Bergen. So if you arrive in early morning, you've basically got 2 whole days in Bergen to explore. Now, if you're going the other direction, so I'm going to refer to my notes on this one here. If you're travelling from Tilbury or from Greenwich, transatlantic flight, you're still going to arrive in generally in the early hours or before midday anyway, transfer down to the ship. You'd have really probably from around maybe from the time your flight lands to the time you get to the ship departing from London, you'll have from about midday right through that day and evening, and then the ship generally leaves anything from around 2 or 3 in the afternoon up until 9 or 10 at night, depending on which date that you travel on. So there's no real difference. I would probably say if you want to spend maybe more time in London, then start in the London direction and end up in Bergen. But coming from the States, they're both early morning arrivals, so it is giving you quite a substantial amount of time in either end. But remember, you can extend your itinerary in each direction. So if you want to sort of spend more or get over any jet lag, then I would definitely maybe spend an extra couple of nights in Bergen or a couple of nights in Oslo. You've got to think to yourself, how many times am I actually going to be doing this trip? You know, if you're a regular visitor to the UK, then you might think, actually, I don't need the extension because I'll be back in the UK in a few months' time. But if you think, actually, I want to make the most out of this and I might not be back for a few years, then do the extension. And then that will just help you get over your jet lag, and then you can enjoy a good couple of days to experience all these cities have got to offer.
Absolutely. And the next question is from Diane, who is in the US, and she says she will be taking this cruise on the 25th of March this year. Her question is, what shall we pack in terms of outerwear?
Hi, Dan. Well, that's not long to wait. We're on 26th of January, 2 months, and you'll be over here. Fantastic. Packing layers. That's all I'll say. Especially the further north that you get. Well, I have to say that the last couple of March and Aprils have been beautiful weather over here. Actually, towards the end of March and into April. So packing layers. Pack a windshield, waterproof jacket, good sturdy shoes. Dress for comfort, because you want to be out exploring these, destinations, and you'll be doing a lot of walking. So good footwear is definitely a must. But take a windshield and layers. Pack your sunglasses because again it can be sort of glaring sunshine as well. Take your hat and your gloves. So you're packing for all seasons really. You could get some scorching days where it's t-shirt weather, but it's better to pack too much than too little, really.
Yeah, I agree. Always overpack. And then the next question is from Alice, who is in the US, and she asks, how far in advance can you book shore excursions, restaurants, and the spa?
Yeah, thanks, Alice. So generally, the way we operate it depends on the cabin grade that you've booked and when it opens up in advance, and it can really be from around 80 days plus to sort of 60 days or so. So I would really look at My Viking Journey, and that'll tell you when your excursions and your restaurants are open for booking. But it's generally, as I said, it's from around 80 days or so plus before departure that we'll start opening these the dining experiences. And the spa you can book on board. As I said, there's no charge for the spa. It's just currently to go into the spa, you'll book time slots at reception, and you'll maybe get an hour or so in the spa, depending how busy it is. But as a general rule, in the spa, it's open to spend as long as you want in there. But it's just currently it's on sort of maybe restricted time slots. But possibly change in the future. But speak to the spa when you're on board, and they can certainly help you out with that. But please refer to My Viking Journey. Brilliant tool. Tells you all about the excursions, all the optionals that you can do. Packed full of information. Got your full itinerary on there, and that'll tell you exactly when everything is available to open.
Perfect. Yeah, I totally agree. And then the next question is from Matt, who is from the US. And he asks, is there any chance to see the Northern Lights on this cruise?
There's not, although I have to say the Northern Lights have been seen in Scotland quite a bit over the last sort of couple of weeks, but we're in January. Yeah, no, I suppose you're travelling north, you're still a bit too far south, really. To see them, I'd recommend the Northern Lights cruise. Next week we've got a Northern Lights presentation actually. I love Norway. I've been so lucky to see the Northern Lights, several times. Much further north though, up in Tromsø, or even further north actually. Sort of where I've travelled to. And one of the best places to actually see the Northern Lights is from the ship. But our Northern Lights cruises run between January to March, and it's really north of the Arctic Circle, gives you the best opportunity to try and see the Northern Lights. The other extreme that you've got is the midnight sun, where it's, sun never sets, 24 hours of daylight, and that's our midnight sun cruise that you'll get in the peak months, generally sort of June through to back end of July. But yeah, I probably wouldn't go out searching for the lights on this cruise. You have to book yourself another one. Go on the Northern Lights cruise. It's fantastic. Absolutely phenomenal itinerary.
I agree. Definitely got to get yourself booked on the Northern Lights for that one. And next question is from Deborah. And she asks, is there a dress code on the ship? Are there formal nights, or are there any casual nights?
Thanks, Deborah. Very casual. Dress as you feel comfortable, but there's no tuxedos and ball gowns required. There's no captain's table. There's no captain's cocktail hour. It's very, very relaxed. The only thing that we really say is in the sort of main restaurants there's a no shorts rule, and other than that it's fairly relaxed. But a lot of people, you're on vacation, you want to get dressed up for the evening, but it's by no means, as I said, you don't have to pack an extra case with your tuxedo and ball gowns. It's not formal at all. Very, very relaxed on board. No problem. All relaxed and raring to go.
Perfect. And then I've got a question here from Paul, who is in Australia, and he asks, is there a minibar included in the stateroom?
Yeah. Hi, Paul. I don't know what time it is in Australia. I suppose it depends where you are actually. But welcome. Thanks for joining. There is a minibar, so in all the staterooms there is a fridge, and depending on the cabin grades that you go in, it'll either be stocked with soft drinks or it'll be stocked with alcoholic drinks, and that's generally gin. I think there's rum in there. You've got your soft drinks, you've got your mixers. I think there's whiskey in there as well, and miniatures, and that's restocked daily depending on your cabin grade. But again, remember, if you're ashore or you want to bring any alcohol on board and stock it in the fridge in your stateroom, that's absolutely no problem whatsoever. But just check on the website or in the brochure, and it will tell you what's included within your stateroom and what grade of cabin that you're in. Yeah.
Perfect. And that is the last question. There is just a comment here from Joseph, who's in the US, and he says, thank you so much for this wonderful presentation, Neil. We're looking forward to our July 2022 journey even more now. And that is all the questions that we have for today.
Thanks, Joseph. Might see you on board, you never know. Thanks for joining. As I said, it's a bit of a brief overview of the presentation, and we answered as sort of any questions that are coming through. Please refer to Viking.com for all the latest information on our cruises. Online booking is available as well, and it's all live availability, so it will tell you exactly what is available at that time. And just remember, on board our ships, you're traveling on the most beautiful ocean ships in the world. They're absolutely stunning, and anybody that's traveled with us will understand what I'm saying. And if you're new to Viking, you're going to have such a fantastic experience. And the crew on board are there basically to make your vacation or holiday go as easy as possible. And any questions that you've got on board, they will answer for you. And if they don't know the answer, they'll find out for you. So as I said, the website is a very good source of information. Keep tuning into Viking.TV, and there'll be more of these, and hopefully we'll be able to answer as many questions as we've got, or call any of our contact centres, and any of the team there will be able to answer any questions whatsoever that you've got. But thanks very much for joining me this evening, and enjoy the rest of your day or night, depending what time it is and where you're tuning in from. And I will see you again very soon. Thanks very much.